Good evening. I'm missing something. I guess it'll come to me. Something, something just ain't right. Now, one thing I got to turn down the ambient. I be trying to get y'all in the mood, and y'all don't really want to be seduced. Trying to soothe y'all with some music as we engage some of these topics, that tend to be not the best. But anyway, this is the BroDiallo broadcast. It is February, Black History Month, 5/2/2024. Lord have his mercy. Of course, I'm in the sanctuary of hypocrisy that is the city of Chirac, state of Illinois, in the United States of America. More of a sanctuary of hypocrisy than ever. The first major U.S. city that has collectively denounced, or not even denounced, but called for a ceasefire in Gaza. Like, what the fuck? That doesn't mean it's a whole bunch of nothing. They play with us. Don't play with it. Don't play with us. They play with us, right? They called for a ceasefire in Gaza, and they didn't call for a ceasefire in Palestine or a ceasefire in Israel, because Israel, like I said, when people are talking about a war between Hamas and Israel, it's like saying a war between the Crips and Bloods and the U.S. military. You know what I'm saying? Or when they talk about the West Bank or Gaza versus Israel, that's literally like a neighborhood. Palestine is Israel. Israel exists on the captured territory of Palestine, and they have cordoned off the Palestinians in sections in basically a town or a city section within their own country. So it would be akin to the United States military erecting razor wire around Harlem, New York, or Bronzeville, Chicago, and then bombing and telling us, all the people who live in Bronzeville, go over to Garfield Avenue or go on King Avenue and go to King Avenue and go south of 58th Street, because everything north of 58th Street is going. And we're here talking as though that massacre is somehow a war, is somehow two nations, as telling the Palestinians to condemn Hamas, telling the Palestinians. That would be like telling me, a brother who's not even, I'm not in the streets, I'm not even in the yard, I'm up on the porch in a rocking chair, and come to me and say, well, if Diallo doesn't, if you don't stop the gangs of the GDs and the BDs from beefing in Chicago, then we're going to denounce you and bomb you. They're like, oh, Hamas, which was founded, Hamas was put in power by Israel, by the way. So anyway, all I'm saying is language is important. And you know it's important by people always talking about semantics doesn't matter. But anyway, all that to say is, I'm in a city. I'm saying all that to say is that Chicago is the first city. You know, which I already told y'all my position on calling for a ceasefire. You know, that's like during slavery calling for a cease of whippings, a cease whippings. You know, and you go like people who oppose slavery say, well, we want the plantation, as if the plantation, they still can breed and assault enslaved African women. They can still rip children from the arms of their mothers and sell them into slavery, still kidnap, dehumanize, but you just can't whip them anymore. You know, that's why you got to call for abolition. It's just the wackest thing. And then Chicago is being applauded, but the city council, there's like over city council is made up of over 40 aldermen from the various districts. And half of the aldermen, literally split down the middle, said, we will not call for a ceasefire. We want to validate and support the genocide. And then the other half of city council members, and I got to check and see if my alderman, I'm pretty sure he's on the side of calling for a ceasefire, but I have to check. I do have to check. And so the mayor went down. So even still half of Chicago. And then on the Chicago Tribune, the Jewish community, whoever the blood clot that is, took out a full-page ad in the Chicago Tribune that says that calling for a ceasefire in Gaza is harmful to the Jewish community of Chicago, and that the Jewish community of Chicago is already experiencing a rise, an uptick in anti-Semitic attacks. You know, so Chicago is that's what's happening in the sanctuary hypocrisy. But that's not all that's happening, because I don't know where I'd be at or who I'd be talking to or what I'd be talking about. So I think it was last Monday that I was talking about immigration and the lies about immigration, because I was basically talking about, I said last week, let me just double check. I said last week that illiteracy has been overcome by and large. And I said last week that the inability or unwillingness to think critically or engage critically with media, with mass bombardment of media, data, and information, is equivalent to being illiterate in the previous centuries. And that people who, even if they can read, even if they have college degrees, you know, even if they are fully literate and have formal education, if they cannot properly intellectually filter the barrage of information that comes their way, they're basically illiterate in the modern era. If you couldn't interpret the symbols of the past, numbers and letters, you were illiterate in the past. But in modern, if you cannot interpret or siphon the various ideologies, the various political leanings, the various agendas of the media you're exposed to, you're functionally and essentially functioning like an illiterate person did from the 20th century or the 19th century. Y'all pretty much function in society the same way as an illiterate peasant or an illiterate sharecropper, or if you're a non-critical thinking, non-media, critical media analysis person today, your life is pretty much not the same in terms of material, in terms of, you know, famine and other things, but it is akin to terms of your intellectual comprehension, your ability to be manipulated, or your exclusion from higher levels of thought, engagement, and being able to engage with the information available to you to advance your interests. Not even advance your interests, but you can't even define what your interests are. So you'll be looking at somebody on Fox News or on the internet, and they'll be insulting you. They'll be calling for your destruction, and you'll think they're trying to save you. Good segue into this whole thing with the migrant crisis. Last week, I also said that the United States is a global empire. And I said I don't respect the territorial integrity of an imperialist nation. Meaning that if you've got military bases all over the world, it is not just hypocritical, it is criminal for you to erect walls and razor wires around your border and forbid the victims of your imperialist policies from coming into the nation, following their resources. If you go to any port city around this country, and I've been down on the West Coast and East Coast, and I've seen these large ports with these large cargo ships come in. I haven't been down there, I don't want to go to no Texas, and I don't want to go to no Florida. But I've seen images of all the caravan of trucks. Some of those trucks they call them land trains. Well, it'll be a big truck with 2, 3, 4 trailers attached coming across the border. In the United States, at the same time, everything we wear, everything we eat, everything we use, all these tools, everything said made in anywhere but the United States. Made in anywhere but your community. And our bodies are wrapped in, our homes are surrounded by shit that has been imported from overseas. But then when the people come over with their shit, people want to get mad about it. And that used to be pretty much a white thing. But when I was saying all that and giving my position about slaves being upset about refugees trespassing on the plantation, somebody came to me and was like, well, because Dr. Umar is really big on this. They trying to replace us. They bringing these people in and da-da-da. And I've always talked, I go look at my presentation on Latino and racism of Latin America and how the black and brown unity is a fallacy. It is a fallacy. And even trying to define who the brown people are in this black and brown, when the vast majority of the browns end up being fucking conquistadors. I try to explain to black people that Latin is not from South America. Latin is from Europe, the Rome, Spain, Portugal, Southern Europeans, right? So anyway, I'm very clear on that. I'm not confused about who those people be and who they are and who we are, right? Essentially, Latin America or South America went through the same thing that North America went in through. A bunch of white invaders. And this is another thing. Okay, I'm all over the place. I'm sleep deprived. So bear with me. You have one of those days where you put your foot on the floor, you wake up, put your foot on the floor and you go running and you don't stop running for the whole damn day. I had one of those days that a brother goes through. Anyway, I know I shouldn't have said that. I entertain myself. But anyway, Latin America went through the same. Oh, let me tell you a mistake I made. And nobody helped correct me. I be correcting people against their wills. And nobody corrects me. Nobody helps me. I said the other day, settlers. And I was calling countries colonial settler states. And I talked about the difference between a colonized nation, a colonizer nation, and a colonial settler nation. Settler is another word like white supremacy, like white privilege. Settler is another word we need to exclude from our vocabulary. We need to exclude the term settler when referring to white people. Whether that is we're talking in historical terms or contemporary terms. Never again say European settlers, colonial settlers, Western settlers, white settlers, colonial settlers. Don't say that. They are invaders. Colonial invaders, Western invaders, white invaders, European invaders, Zionist invaders, Jewish, Christian, Islamic invaders. Never again say the word settler in that context. Never again. In fact, that's the only context I ever hear the word settler used. And if you must use settlers, if you have to keep that word because you like how it rolls off your tongue, then say the settlers at the southern borders, the Haitian settlers coming into the New World, the Venezuelan settlers. Say, I was on my way to work today and I bumped into a good friend of mine. He's a Nigerian settler. Because settlers come to a place and settle and start to contribute to what exists. No European went anywhere in the world and settled into what he found. Every single place they went, they upended. They destroyed, they colonized, they enslaved, they brutalized, exploited, raped, stole. They either stole the resources and went back to Europe or stole the land and stayed where the fuck they was. They are not settlers. And I thought, I've gone through my mind and I've gone through my writings and I've tried to find all these terms. They got us, man. They're good and they're smart. Dale Jones says white folks are good at what they do. And Bobby E. Wright said white folks are smartest. Don't ever underestimate. The only thing more dangerous than underestimating the European capacity to kill is underestimating the Europeans' creativity when it comes to killing you. Hot. Okay, so I just caught myself. I don't know. I think I was either on Earn Your Liberation or the BroDiallo show. And I was on there like, yeah, these colonial settlers and the settlers this and the settlers that. And I was having a conversation with this brother, and I was talking about settler colonialism, and I was telling him about the U.S. trying to and its clandestine proxy wars, and there's the trying to upend and coup d'etats in Venezuela. And I kept just saying, the settlers and colonial settler states, and I just had a whole day, and that evening I was like, God damn. Here I am trying to tell people, don't say white supremacy, don't say white privilege, and here I am. I still got some of those rotten maggot infested words in my mouth. So please put the word out. We'll never call another European in history or another European outside of Europe, living outside of Europe, any nation of white, governed by white people, dominated by white people, occupied by white people, or Christians, or Muslims. North African Muslims are invaders. Europeans in the New World are invaders. Those white folks, those conquistadors you like to pretend somehow are less racist. The Catholic conquistadors are less racist than the British Pilgrims. I don't know where y'all get that from. So anyway, I was talking about how there are certain black individuals, prominent black individuals, who are against migration and talking this bullshit, which the crisis at the border is a fucking lie. It is not a border crisis. The United States doesn't have a border crisis. The United States has an imperialism crisis. The United States, because of its blatant violation of international law, is blatant violation of national sovereignty of Haiti, of Venezuela, of Honduras, and even Mexico, and Central America, Panama, you name the country, and I'll tell you about the U.S. invasion, or the U.S. proxy war, or the U.S. death squad, or the U.S. puppet dictator that is causing the invade. The United States doesn't have a border crisis. The United States doesn't have an immigration crisis. The United States does not have an illegal immigration crisis. And so some people came to me, and we got people stoking these flames. Prominent black people, red pill. I don't know whether red pill or blue pill. I can't tell the difference. I think it's red pill. Red pill, Dr. Umar, Dr. Fubar, and all these other characters are out here. Yeah, they coming. And we got black people saying they coming to take our jobs. They coming to replace us and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody mentioned Compton, where there have been incidents of Latin American, Mexican, mainly Northern and Southern Mexicans coming in, expressing, articulating, living out, and imposing their racist views. Because remember, there are over 1 million African people, millions of African people that live currently. There are more African people south of the U.S. border than north of it. The vast majority of people of direct African descent live in Latin America. There are more black folks in Brazil than in the United States. What did Dr. John Henry Clark say? The only difference between a Jamaican, an Afro-American, an Afro-Brazilian, Black Latino, the only difference between all of us is a boat stop. That's all that separates us, is a boat stop. And remember, there'd be some American plantation owner who goes bankrupt, and then he just sells a bunch of Africans wholesale, take them down to Virginia, or take them to the Mississippi River, take them down to the southern coast in Louisiana, and ship them off to the Caribbean to a British lord. and you went overnight from being in the United States to being in the Caribbean, and it's just the mismanagement of some white piece of shit, some white motherfucker has changed your fate from American to Jamaican, nothing more than that. Or some British lord, some colonial governor in the British Commonwealth, you know, some Grenadian plantation owner comes down with malaria or syphilis, and he dies, and the family back in Europe says, well, we don't want to go to that sweltering land to oversee the plantation. Just sell off our property, divest. And they would get a whole bushload, a whole plantation full of Grenadians, Bahamians, Haitians, and bring them up to the southern coast of the United States, to the southern ports, or take them into Mexico and march them across the border, or because most of that was Mexico. So it's literally the whims of the racist white people. And how do you take something, an identity, an identification, a position imposed on you by the whims of racist white people and fucking stand on that? That's standing on bullshit. I'm an American. I'm a black American. ADO, I'm an American. When it's literally, you're only a black American by roll of the dice. You're only a Jamaican by roll of the motherfucking dice. You know, only by a roll of the dice. And we gonna try to make that our identity. That's you standing on bullshit. I'm an African. Because that's far back as I know, that's the last time we self-identified. So we can build on that. That's standing on business. I'm an African diaspora. Now I get to define going forward, because you took me out of Africa and erased those bonds, or tried to, but you failed because my melanin too strong. So I stand on business and say, well, I'm an African, and I will define what type of African I'll be. Revolutionary, Pan-Africanist, or even if I choose to be a buck dancing minstrel coon. Self-determination. Y'all don't like to use these terms outside of Kwanzaa. When Kwanzaa Claus gets on his red Cadillac and goes back to the south side of the North Pole, y'all just forget about self-determination, collective work and responsibility. Y'all forget about the concepts. So I'm sorry to speaking out of turn and speaking out of place. I guess I got what? Goddamn 11 months before I get to use those concepts. Anyway, somebody said to me when I said, fuck the border crisis is a lie, and it is inappropriate for any African to talk about, African is their word too. Okay, you a Kabylonian. African is ours, but okay, go off. What was I saying? Oh, okay. Now, a Kabylon, right? A Kabylon, Africa. So somebody said to me, though, somebody said in the comments, I didn't get a chance to get to it, but what about Compton? Because black people, Compton has been purged. Compton has been purged of black people. Compton was a black community, all black everything. And now Compton is predominantly Latinx or Latino communities. And there's several areas and neighborhoods. And I even know black people in California, like the Mexicans are taking over. You go to Oakland, and the Oakland, they're like the Asians are taking over. And it's so weird that so many of these black people, because I agree, black people are being displaced. Well, I tell you, my great aunt says, my great aunt, who's older than Israel, my great aunt has more birthdays than Israel has Independence Day, because my great aunt was born before the nation of Israel was founded. I used to say my grandma is older than Israel, but she passed away, and hopefully she will have lived longer than Israel. But I digress. There are several black communities, but my great aunt says that black people are the wildebeest of the world. I used to spend my summers in New York, and I used to go to New York, and I couldn't find a job on paper, so she'd hook me up with one of her friends, and I'd do little odd jobs around New York City just because I wanted to be in New York, the home of hip hop, then and now. And so I'd sit and I go after a long days of working at the ironwork shop, trying to save up money to buy school supplies and to fly school gear. And especially back then, wasn't no internet shopping, wasn't no internet for common folks. And so you could go to New York. I would go there and get mixtapes. I would go there and get kicks. And I go there and get some gear and shit. And to be the fly shit. And then I go back to Kansas City for the school year. And I had all the new fly shit that nobody else had access to. Unless they too went away for the summer and was able to hit a lick. But I digress. My aunt, when I'd be in New York, when as a little kid, she'd watch the news. You know, she was a scholar, she was an academic, and she was a university teacher and administrator. So she always had to be plugged in on what's going on in the world, right? And her campus at her school had a large international population. And so she was always plugged in, reading U.S. News and World Report and watching the Manil Lair Hour. And so I'd come there and sit. And it was a very academic place. She had a study and all these books. And when I lived in the hood, the only book we had in our house was the Bible, right? But anyway, one of her sayings, she'd look at the news and see one plight of black people after another. Black people suffering on the continent, black people suffering in Brixton, black folks suffering in India, and the Diallo and the untouchables. And at this time, it was still, the apartheid was still in full of fucking effect. So she'd be talking, and she said, black people are the wildebeest of the world. She said, black people are the wildebeest of the world, because we'd also watch animal documentaries. And if you ever see the great wildebeest herds striding across the Serengeti during the dry season, it'd be some European narrating a million-year-old African phenomenon, and stride across the Serengeti, and the hungry lions sit in wait, and the the leopard sits in wait, and as they try to cross the river, and the wildebeest is accosted by a crocodilian. And then even if you get killed, and then come the vultures, and the scavengers, the hyenas. And we look at these animals like just all they trying to do is give birth and all move in mass and say, we all got to go here. And we just moving with the tides, moving with the seasons. And all the animals prey on us. And she's like, oh, we are the wildebeest of the world. Africans get moved from hither to there to there. We're moved around according to other people's agendas. And everybody preys on us. Everybody make money off of us. They prey on our kids and they make money off of us. We are the wildebeest of the world. She used to say that. In fact, next time I'm in New York, I'm gonna bring that up. I'll be like, Auntie, remember when you used to say, we the wildebeest of the world? She'll probably deny it. You know how old folks think you're always trying to set them up. What? When did I say that? Why? What you? I'll tell her, no, just, fond memory. I'm not trying to set you up. But anyway, so yes, it is true. Black people have been displaced from Compton. Black people are being displaced, got displaced in Brooklyn, as I live and breathe here on the south side of Bronzeville. I'm right around the corner from the historical jazz and blues district of Chicago. Bobby Blue Bland and Lead Belly and Lou Rawls, all these giants. I'm a few blocks from where Nat King Cole used to play live. Oscar Brown Jr., just a few more blocks, used to come and perform at this wonderful hotel restaurant that was black on. I'm sitting in the midst of all this blackness. And I'm a settler. Because I wasn't born here, I wasn't raised here, but I moved here chasing behind a woman. Brothers can relate. Me up in behind some woman, I ended up someplace I never intended to be. But right now as I speak, I get up in the morning. I'm an atheist, so I don't say my prayers. I sacrifice a kitten. We don't start our morning with prayer. We start our morning with blood sacrifice to Mammon. I'm joking. But I get up in the morning, 6 a.m, police at my door, fresh Adidas squeak across the bathroom floor. But one of the first things I do when I get up in the morning is I open up the curtains so that the light can shine in for the plants. Even this thing, I have to come up here and open this. Is this window locked? So I go open up the plants. Everywhere we have plants, I have to go open curtains or put up blinds. And every morning, I say to my wife, and I hate to say this, I got to work on myself. I say, you know, new gentrifier just dropped. And I recognize the white people moving into my neighborhood aggressively. I just saw a brand new white person today, brand new. And I recognize them by their dogs. When I see a white person walking a dog I never saw before, I was like, oh, new gentrifier just dropped. And when I moved here, the properties, the high-end properties, the colored folks who was eating high on the hog were paying $250 max, and that's for like a multi-family unit, investment property, or you just got one of them old school King Drive mansions. You know, that's the high end. There's properties around here, 80 G's. You know, before we moved over here, it was $80,000-$70,000 properties over here. And now, just a decade later, it's $1 million properties on the blocks, and white folks are everywhere. And I'm gonna give white folks a secret. And just to say, if y'all ever want to put me on a white payroll, I can help white folks. Y'all want to give me some of that Jay-Z money? I mean, if Jay-Z can save the NFL, I could just save some random white folks and get me a bag too. But let me tell you something, white folks. When you're gentrifying an area and you want to go in incognito, don't buy a dog. Just give it 3, 4, 5 years. Just go visit your friends' dogs. Because that's how we tell how many of folks are coming. We tell you, because if y'all not walking your dogs, to the average black person, y'all look like the same people. You're all wearing the same yoga pants. You know, y'all look the same, wearing the same stiff suits and stuff, driving the same, you know, y'all driving the Teslas. Y'all look the same. Y'all could take over my neighborhood, which was like 97% black, can go to 90% white, and I wouldn't even notice if every white person wasn't walking a different dog. So that's my advice. If you want to incognito, sneak in, sneak attack, sneak gentrification, just give it a few years before you buy a dog. And if you must have a dog, please don't buy a German Shepherd or a Rhodesian Ridgeback. Give us a break. So those are gems. You know, you put me on an average, bring me in for your DEI or whatever. You put me on a payroll, give me a grant. That's the kind of gems I be dropping for y'all. I be knowing shit. Anyway, black people get displaced. So black people can conclude that, well, Mexicans coming across the border is bad for black people, or Hondurans, or if the United States wasn't persecuting refugees and building border walls and putting up, razor wire bed and drowning children at the border, or putting them in cages, they would come and drive us away. But I have some bad fucking news for you, black people. Bad news. Our status of displacement happened long before the imposition. Remember, when the Asians, there was a ban on Asian migration, a ban on East Indian migration. Immigration bans have never, throughout the United States, there have been legal and illegal, legislated and just practiced, but not in policy, but in practice. The U.S. imposing inhumane and illegal restrictions on movements of individuals has never translated into progress, stability, or advantage for the Africans here in the United States. What I'm telling you is basically white, racist, fascists are not going to help or save us. And when we align ourselves with white, racist, fascists, for what we identify as our short-term goals, we always come out worse on the other side. So if you follow Umar in saying, I support Trump, or I support these insane, bloodthirsty, genocidal invaders and their restrictions on immigration, I support that. They're not going to stop at that. Remember all the black people who were like, yes, I'm so glad Ron DeSantis and where woke grows to guy and the anti-woke movement, because I don't like the drag queen and I don't like the transgenders, and they're going to have a transgender woman in the bathroom with my precious child, and they're going to have drag queens reading books to my precious child, and they're going to have litter boxes in classrooms or litter boxes in high school bathroom for the child that identifies as a furry. And it's all lies, but we thought, and it's the same person, Dr. Fubar and Malamu Baruti, who told us there's a gay agenda to effeminize us. And then we looked at the fascist white people, the racist white people, the right-wing reactionary whites, and says, well, they're going up against the pride movement. Yeah, they're going to get all this pride stuff. And Heather has two mommies out of the school. Yeah, and there's a book about gay penguins, and the gay penguin book won't be in the schools. Yeah, and then there won't be any black history taught in school. What? Oh, there won't be any we're going to call enslaved people volunteers. What? We're going to censor teachers' ability, and we're going to burn books and boycott it. No black authors, and Maya Angelou, get out, and Toni Morrison, get the blood clot out, an autobiography of Malcolm X, and any book by Alex Haley, get the fuck out. We was like, whoa. We just thought y'all was going to get the gays off of our children. We thought you were going to allow the masculinity and put the black man back in the home. Yes, the white conservatives will put the black man back in the home and then set that house on fire. There ain't no shortcuts. You're standing on bullshit instead of standing on business. You cannot depend on the right-wing reactionaries to advance your interest. And black people being displaced from continent anywhere else is not an issue of immigration. It is a symptom. It is a byproduct of racism, institutional racism, and capitalism. So how the fuck are you fighting immigration and fighting against immigrants for a problem that predates the immigrants, that was here before any of those various immigrant populations, and we bump heads with every immigrant population? Right now is the Venezuelan refugees. Remember the Vietnamese and the Hmong people and the Koreans were coming here after the Korean War, and we busting the windows in the Korean business. And the Vietnamese, when we couldn't tell no difference, we just called them Chinese or whatever. It was a big fight. And then the Eastern Europeans came on the East Coast, came through Ellis Island and came into the black slums and turned them into white ghettos. And then after they all got their leg up and we were fighting, and the Irish were attacking and burning, and all these populations, black people are the stepping stone in the system of capitalism. There's always, we are a repressed race. So anybody that wants to elevate in this society, they're going to step on us. And instead of fighting all these individual groups, as we can't fighting all these individual groups is inefficient. We need to destroy the system that creates these antagonisms and gives these people the motivation and the means to do it. And there's another thing with this Compton thing. And I don't want to talk about what I came here to talk about, but this is all related. With Straight Outta Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube, when you want to talk about black communities. Everybody, when I was a kid, people used to talk about white flight, which sounds real fucking stupid, talking about white flight in the era of gentrification. But affluent Negroes would always complain, I got me a job and I moved out to this affluent white neighborhood, and then the next Negro and the next Negro, and then all of a sudden the affluent white folks I lived to raise my children around all start to leave, and there was this problem of white flight. And there were all these stuffy Negroes running around talking about the phenomenon of white flight and how can we correct this, and trying to compel people and convince white people to say, hey, affluent white person, you have nothing to fear from the black lawyer and the black congressman and the black entrepreneur that moved down the street, or the celebrated black entertainer that moves on your block. You have nothing to fear from us. There is no reason to sell your property to another Negro at above market rate and move to another white area. And I always said, even as a kid, how come nobody complains about black flight? I said black flight is a much bigger problem than white flight, because white flight is when affluent black people move into an affluent area and affluent white people move away from that area, and then those affluent black people are left to live amongst lower class whites and other blacks, which is apparently Negro hell. But I'm like, what about when the affluent, when Dwayne Wayne gets the job with Konichiwa Industries and moves out of the hood? That's a bigger problem for me, that affluent blacks are fleeing the hood than white folks are fleeing their communities because a black person was able to finesse a real estate agent to sell them property. Some weird shit. But us not being able to lock in and secure our communities, us being easily displaced for our communities, is also related to decades of this whole make it out. This make it out. All of our popular media from the 70s up till now, well, we gotta make it out. He gonna make it out the hood. We even making these memes and we laugh so hard where they make that meme of some dude rapping and he got some real shitty ass lyrics. He can't rap for shit. And then the guy, his homies like, man, when you find out your friend can't rap, so you can't make it out the hood. You can't play sports, so you can't make it out the hood. So what the fuck does 4 decades of the most affluent, talented, well-researched, and upwardly mobile members of your community to see it as a status symbol to live away from the rest of us? So I'll say all that to say, the displacement of black people is not an issue of atrocities against refugees and migrants. Will not solve that problem, because that atrocity of black displacement predates that atrocity. And that is another one of those things where they were like, listen, we got 2 populations we oppress and genocide, and they're looking at each other and bumping heads. They fighting each other for crumbs while we got the whole goddamn pot. So I'm talking about Different World. If you go back and look at old reruns of A Different World, you'll notice how many times they reference making it out. And then whenever there was a new season of A Different World and a new class would come in, they'd always have a rough around the edges ghetto student who had some type of untapped talent. And he'd come in there and be like, you can't tell me nothing, Dwayne Wayne. Or it'd be a girl, I think Jada Pickett and Tupac's walking around campus with his Carl Kanai gear on, cross colors. And then inevitably, some point throughout the progression of the season, he'll have to be sat down and be explained to him that if you keep going the way you going, you're not going to make it out. You're going to end up right back in your community. You stop fucking around, you keep fucking around, you're going to end up living in a community that's predominantly black. Be careful, boy. All these brilliant black folks. So I accept that the horrors of the loss of Compton has many elements and has many symptoms, but one core issue. And y'all need to stop regurgitating the rhetoric of or aligning yourselves with right-wing, jingoistic, xenophobic nationalists. That is not the solution. You're better off, if you need a non-black population to align with, find the white leftist or the Venezuelan communist or the Haitian revolutionaries, Vodun Haitian revolutionaries. There's people you can ally with, but the last people, these MAGA motherfuckers. And if you see a problem and you just look at the surface of a problem, you just look at the outcome and not the origins. What do we say about literacy? Irrationality rules. So anyway, But I thought that was something I should have to address. Anyway, let's move on to, I want to talk about the Grammys. Killer Cuddly Mike, bless his heart. Let me tell y'all black folks something. I got a little time. I didn't watch the Grammys. All I see is that didn't I just tell y'all not to do this? I'm about to do what I said not to do. I just see the aftermath. When it's the Grammys, BET, all this corny shit that's still on TV, I don't watch that shit, but I get to enjoy the aftermath. Like Geechee sent me a message like, man, I got all these messages about Cuddly Mike. Because, you know, Dr. Ball, not me, but Dr. Ball and Cuddly Mike have ideological divergence. They bumping heads. They've been bumping heads for quite some time. And Cuddly Mike, I got caught, like what he say? I got hit by a stray because Cuddly Mike was calling us corny. He came on Black Power Media and called some folks corny. And what they say about hit dogs. So when Cuddly Mike referred to some corny people on the Black Power Media channel, you know, and then the hit dogs holler. So Jared immediately assumed he was calling himself corny, and us by extension in association, we're corny by association. So it was you know, those last few weeks. But anyway, whatever beef they had, obviously Cuddly Mike is winning because Jared ain't getting the awards that he got, and every time I turn around, Cuddly Mike, and I do call him Cuddly Mike, because he ain't killing shit. Cuddly Mike is getting all these awards, and he's working with the NRA. He's sitting across from Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's the white folks love him. Everybody love him. We ain't getting love like that from white folks, even though I tell them how to stealthily gentrify my own community. But what I did, they not gonna cut me a check for that because I gave it away for free. And maybe that's my problem. But anyway, they were just heaping awards. It was like, remember that time when Thriller came out and Michael Jackson had like cradling all those awards? I mean, that was damn near Cuddly Mike. I don't want to say congratulations because I have to be honest. I'm indifferent. I'm from that era. What KRS-One? I know y'all don't like when I quote KRS-One, but KRS-One said award shows are for pimps and hoes and every other hypocrite to show off their clothes. And since he dropped that line in 87 to 88, I ain't paid no attention to no pageants, no award shows. But this is the thing about Cuddly Mike. I can't say congratulations because it would be insincere. I don't really care. I've always said that the dude, I've never denied his talent. I could hate your guts, but if you got talent, I'm not going to deny talent. What's the point? What is the point? But white folks love him. And in my top five, ain't none of my top fives got no goddamn Grammy. I do have to say that. But anyway, Cuddly Mike, he got arrested that same night. Let me tell y'all, black people, you got to learn, man. You got to read the room. And Cuddly Mike didn't get arrested. They said there was an altercation. But that's not why Cuddly Mike got arrested. Cuddly Mike got arrested because of Will Smith. Will Smith should pay Cuddly Mike's bond, cover any fees, because the only reason they took Cuddly Mike into custody is because Will Smith went on the TV and made the I think it was the LAPD or whatever jurisdiction, made them look like some punks. He committed felony assault on TV and then walked back to his seat and sat down and put his head up and then accosted, because threatening people, keep my name out your fucking mouth. He disrespected the police, security, the censors, and then a few moments later he got up and then accepted a reward. So they was like, this Negro whom we manufactured this, he's a fucking Frankenstein. We made him just like we did Cosby. We made this dude in a Negro factory. He's ours. We got the patent on this Negro. We own the copyright to this Negro. And he's going to come violate us and disrespect our hallowed halls. This ain't the BET Awards. This ain't the Source Awards. This is the Oscars. And so, you know, after some shit like that happens, white folks going, they ain't like us. They don't let shit slide. So I know the cops were like, wait till the next award show. That they was going to take somebody. They was like, he just punked us all. Who does he think he is, Trump? You can't commit multiple felonies and then walk the streets like you somebody. You ain't Trump. So I just thought to myself, man, listen, y'all better start acting right. When anytime there's an award show, you better hold it together. If I got invited to the Grammys, I'd be like, where's my seat, boss? Oh, yes, boss. I'd be on dress code. I put my hands in my lap. I raised my hand to go to relieve myself in the bathroom because they was waiting for a chance. They was waiting. Like, let another one of these manufactured Negroes, one of our hand-picked Negroes, go off the reservation. With the next Negro at an award ceremony that goes off strip, we're going to put him in handcuffs because they did to him what they wish they had done to Will. But Will shocked them because Will was the most well-behaved. They gave Will on loan to the Arab oligarchs. Will was such a good, priceless piece of property that they sent him to Dubai. And they were like, hey, and the Arab oligarchs was like, hey, you got a mascot we can borrow? Like, yeah, go over there. That's how beloved he was. And just like Bill Cosby. And it's like, what is going on? There's a factory defect because all these manufactured prominent Negroes that going off script. So I'm going to say, I won't say congratulations for the Grammy wins, but I will say, Cuddly Mike, you don't hold your head up high. Because that ain't your fault. It ain't your fault. It's not your fault. Bless your heart, Cuddly Mike. If Will Smith hadn't done what he did, you'd have never found yourself. So you get on the phone. I know y'all got each other's number right there. Next Negro Illuminati, the Negro Naughty meeting. Tell them, man, this is all on you. Now we got to act right. We got to act right. Y'all tried to bring some of that Source Awards and BET Award shit up in the NAACP Award shit up into the white folks and the Tonys, the Oscars, what's the Emmys. Y'all hold that shit. I'm telling you, black people, it's like airports after 9/11. I don't know if you flew on airplanes before 9/11, but airplanes was lit. If you get in an old plane, they used to be able to smoke in the airports was lit before 9/11. You could get on an airplane with fake ID, with somebody else's tickets. People was in the bathroom, 1,000-mile club, and in the bathroom freaking off. The airplanes was litty. It was like, hey, it's vacation time. We kicking it. Got to leave the damn country just to have some fun. After 9/11, your ass better stand in them long-ass lines and let them TSE people fondle you. You better not have no sneak. They stop playing with you. It wasn't no-fly list. You could go defecate in a TWA plane. TWA ain't even around no more. You can go to TWA and defecate in the aisle, and then the next day we're like, forget it. I'll get me a Delta ticket to fly back. Wasn't no-fly list. The airports weren't sharing their documents with other airlines and with the federal government. The shit was lit. But after 9/11, you had to. So Will Smith was the entertainment 9/11 for you Negroes. You go to them shows, you on the red carpet, you go to the Met Gala, you better walk the line. Just like, let me tell y'all something else. This don't really apply to celebrities, but let me tell y'all something. We've had a courtroom 9/11. Y'all remember that brother that went over that judge's desk and hemmed up that judge? Let me tell you something. I don't care if it's a ticket, a moving violation, or you going to argue a ticket or small claims. These pigs is waiting for redemption. They waiting. Every bailiff in America is like shining their boots. Every bailiff in America is in the gym right now. They getting ready. They taking classes. Every bailiff in America is just waiting. Oh, that was the biggest one. I tell you that too. White folks don't forget. Remember what happened right after the OJ verdict? It was the Republican Revolution. Newt Gingrich came to power. I talked about that in detail, about the Republican Revolution and how white folks riot. I wrote a whole essay on that. Let me see. I'm just saying. Black folk, I'm saying all that to say is kill a Cuddly Mike. Cuddly Mike. If you want to stay on white folks' good side and you want to get more of these pats on the head from white folks, the time is over. Wait till the Source Awards. The Source Awards is over, but wait till the BET or NAACP Awards. Don't pull this shit. Now you've been made an example of. Will Smith is the last Negro that's gonna get away with acting out at that dude that flew over. If you got a court date coming up, they gonna want you to do. They waiting for their chance at redemption. You know, every bailiff, every court officer right now across America is playing Bob Marley's redemption song while he's doing sit-ups and push-ups. They playing the Rocky theme song. They just waiting and begging and praying for one of you Negroes to try to go over that goddamn podium again. Judges is gonna be in there trying to provoke people. You walk in the courtroom, the judge gonna be trying to, oh, look at your shoes. What are those? Who did your lineup? What, you mad? Huh? You want to do something? You mad? I'm just saying. That's what you just gotta play cute. We in America. We ain't safe in America. We're not safe in America. Every now and then there is a milestone there is a line that is crossed and the line can't be crossed again. So I just thought I'd point that out. Cuddly Mike has been a victim of Will Smith going off script. And Cuddly Mike, you can be the next Will Smith. You can be the next Cosby. White folks is digging you right now. Don't mess it up for all. Make us all look bad. I think that's a good segue. I'm just giving out free game. I didn't listen to Snoop Dogg said the game's supposed to be sold, not told. Now he's supposed to talk about. I'm tired, y'all. And we're gonna open this up for questions because I'm curious. I want to talk about pro-blackness because again, I don't really want to talk about it. I really don't even want to have to think about this, but I have to. Right? Pro-blackness and racial esteem. Now, I'm gonna just say this is quick. We as a people, we get really confused, and it's wild to me because Black pride was also a thing. The white gays stole pride from the black pride, black and proud, black beauty. That shit, those themes go all the way back to the Garvey movement and Carlos Cooks. That shit goes all the way back. Miss Black America pageant, black and all that. And they steal all our shit. They done fucking fucked up woke. We've been saying woke and talking about stay woke since the 1930s. They done fucked that up. They just fucked. They colonized our shit. But anyway, I just got some thoughts on pro-blackness. First thing I want to say about pro-blackness is pro-blackness went obsolete in the 1960s. It might come back, but right now it's done. It's a wash. Pro-blackness, there's a time where something is helpful and healthy and positive, and then it becomes neutral, and then it becomes negative. It's like milk. For babies, milk is very good for you. For toddlers, you can take it or leave it because now you can eat solid food and all that. But when you become an adult and you no longer produce that enzyme to help you properly digest milk can become harmful to you. In fact, they find, and they tell all this propaganda, let me tell you, if they're telling you some shit, any food that has a council, stop fucking with that food. The American Dairy Council, the American Pork Council, any food that has a council, leave it the fuck alone. But anyway, it becomes something that helps you grow, helps you to thrive. Then all of a sudden it becomes pretty much, you could take it or leave it. It doesn't really have an impact, negative or positive. And both of my sons were home birth. We were hippie. We were barefoot hippies. I remember we'd visit my wife's house when we were young parents. And my oldest son, who's 20, he'll be 22 this year. My oldest son, and we'd be coming in, and she'd have like some weird satchel or some hemp. She used to carry this hemp sling and just stick him in there and carry him around her shoulders and not have like a Bjorn or a stroller. And we walked through the door, and my wife's father would look at my wife and be like, "Can y'all at least put on some shoes?" Now we had on shoes, but he didn't call them. They were flip flops. But we were hippies. Both of my sons were home birth with midwives. Shout out to Tyoma. And if you're from Brooklyn in the 2000s, 90s, you know Tyoma. If you were cultural, vegan, progressive, African-centered, comedic, you know Tyoma. She delivered, I mean, gosh, thousands of babies. Anyway, she's a midwife, Jamaican midwife that delivered all the babies in Brooklyn. Probably still is. But anyway, I think I still owe her some money. What's the interest on a 21-year? But anyway, no, I'm snitching, self-snitching. Anyway, well, become a breatharian, Mr. Ask. Yeah, Edward asked. Good question. Now we all have to become, but you get my drift. You know what I'm saying. But anyway, I won't get into that. What was I talking about? Oh, the development. Pro-Blackness. And how pro-Blackness, you need to stop being pro-Black. That's what I'm getting to. At the end of this, when y'all tune off, nobody will leave here being pro-Black anymore. And you will be better for it. So anyway, my sons, because they were home birth, vegan, hippie babies, they were both breastfed for like 2 years. And they were on the breast milk. But it always happened like the first few months they were on breast milk, and then we start to introduce like little mashed up, and my wife would wanted to make her own organic, non-GMO baby food with the enzymes still in active enzymes. So she would make her own baby food and had this little food grinder and getting figs and cooking peas and shit. And so when they went to solids, the breast milk was kind of like a treat. So when they got to be like 9 months to 1 year old and they started getting solids, they would sometimes be breastfed when it was time for bed, like when they got tired or they were upset. They just would occasionally breastfeed, when before they was on that breast milk every day. I'm going to get to a point. But then as they got older, like I said, the cutoff time was 2. And I didn't say, to me, it would have been cutoff time would have been, I give them 2 weeks and then I'm back and then get off my woman. But, she the mothers, I believe in a woman's right to choose. And she said, I want to do it for at least 2 years. But anyway, so as they get older, the breast milk, their bodies stop producing, I forgot the name, what is it, renin? That special enzymes that infants and small children produce to help them break down the special lactase or whatever. No, that's the fake shit. They have a special enzyme that they produce in infancy that allows them to break down the complex sugar within the dairy, the mother's milk, or even dairy. And then they stop producing that. So you could see that now our sons, my one son is in his late teens and the other son is in his early 20s, if they were still breastfeeding, even though you supported breastfeeding is wonderful, it's a great way to start your life. But as you mature, it's time to move on. And some of y'all want to supplement that shit and go suck on a cow's teat or drink cow's milk, right? Which is unhealthy. Even though you think it's healthy, it appears to be healthy, and you see Spike Lee with his milk mustache, Spike Lee promoting milk and lactase. Is it lactase? I thought it was renin. No, that's the thing for the animals. Rennet. Anyway, I don't know the name. I had to know that for an exam, but I passed the test. Did you? As I was saying, it would look weird. And so it's the same thing with pro-Blackness. When Black people were defined as chattel, our humanity was denied. When we got our emancipation and we were cultivating an identity and determining our destiny as a people, right? Pro-Blackness was milk that we would consume in our infancy as a people, as we reemerge as human beings, as Africans. So being pro-Black and looking at the various achievements of other Black people and just having a base level saying, if you Black, we support you, and we're going to stand together as a people, woo, woo, woo. that like after emancipation, Reconstruction, hell, I even give you up to Jim Crow. Pro-Blackness was appropriate. But as we mature and we figured out that even though they took off the shackles and chains, they still intend to hyper exploit us, to genocide us, to exclude us, to dehumanize us. And even though they didn't make good on the 13th and 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment, and they started figuring out ways to re-enslave us, they started figuring out ways to reassert their unjust hierarchy and dominance of us, we figured some shit out. Because we walked off like, oh, thank Lord, we free. And go from plantation to prison without skipping a beat. So, and we didn't get our fucking 40 acres and mules. So anyway, I mean, literally, many of our ancestors went into debt to the people who just enslaved us for the last 250 years. So, pro-blackness. But as we started to develop ideologies and methodologies and movements of resistance, and we started having these heroes of resistance, that's going through the toddler adolescent stage. Pro-blackness wasn't as easy anymore because black people started getting integrated into the system. Black generals in the military, black CEOs of companies, black entrepreneur and moguls, and black presidents. Right? And so in that time, pro-blackness became a little tricky because our oppressors became much more sophisticated in their systems and institutions of oppression. They developed the technology of control. They said, well, we will control people through brute force. We will tell them you are not human, you are not a citizen, you are unworthy, you are cursed by God. And we are the pure, we are the superior, we are the supreme. And they was like, that doesn't fly anymore. It makes us look like the bad guys. We want to be Luke Skywalker. We don't want to play the emperor. We want to have an empire, but we want to be an empire of Luke Skywalker. We don't want to be the Sith Lord, right? So they said, let's create conditions and let's come up with these methods where we can oppress people with them not being directly oppressed. So first they came out with some real janky shit, separate but equal. Yeah, you're a citizen, but we'll just be separate but equal. And that didn't work. So now there's like, oh, separate but equal doesn't work. And we can intermarry with you. You can have your own billionaires and your own mega stars and celebrities. You can have it all. But yet I'm still going to maintain that hierarchy. I'm still going to exploit you as a resource. And I'm still going to make sure that my unjust hold on the means of production will never, not only will it not be lost, it won't even come close to be threatened. So they became a lot more sophisticated in cultivating and utilizing individuals and groups within our community to act as their proxies. Neo-colonialism, new Jim Crow, new Negro, new Uncle Tom, new Sambo. To where before there would be a white man before the cameras on the nightly news talking about the bestial Negro. Now they have blacks. Now they have Candace Owens. Right? So now that when the shit was butt naked, when it was overt racism and overt racial hostility, and even if a Negro was hyper talented, even if they had a wicked jump shot or could hit a baseball, they understood that when Sammy Davis Jr. or a black congressman, Adam Clayton Powell, the greatest black politician or the greatest black entertainment of that era, they still turn on the TV or turn on the radio and hear Steppin' Fetchin'. Still have to look at Al Jolson, mommy, and still do. And so even if you was a black Charleston White and you hated everything about your blackness and every black person around you, you better hate, and you're gonna have to hate in your own neighborhood. You're gonna have to hate back when Miles Davis was on tour and he would come into these clubs where he couldn't rent a room. He would play at these clubs where he couldn't sit at the bar, and he would play with his back to the audience. And white folks was like, he's such a deep artist that he he just can't engage. He's just so lost in the music. He turns his back to the audience. When he would turn his back to the audience as a kid, as a get back, as an offense, to turn your back on someone in Western culture is considered to be offensive. Like when you do the walk of shame or some shit, like you could never, like in European culture, you could never present your king, your backside to your king. You always had to be front facing. You see the king walking around and everybody's scooting so that they're always front facing the king. So he was like, man, you know, I don't want to get lynched. I don't want to lose my career, so I'll just do this minor thing. It was equivalent to taking a knee, but now we can't even take a knee. Kaepernick shouldn't have took a knee. That's subservient. When they turn on the anthem, he should have turned his back to the flag. You think they was mad about the knee? That's why Dick Gregory said we need to study white folks. Know what makes them tick and what ticks them off. But anyway, so all that to say, there was a time, regardless of your ideology, regardless of your income and position, but all that time is behind us now. But one thing that isn't behind us, we got new methods, new techniques, new circumstances, new technology, but the hierarchy of white hegemony, capitalism, domination, exploitation, genocide is still with us. How do we got all this new shit that goes and feeds into the same machine? So we have to evolve our resistance. And we have to expand our understanding of our relationship and our standing within the system. That means we understand that pro-blackness is obsolete and inadequate. I've said it before, but I have to come at it again because it obviously ain't sticking. You can't root for everybody black. We have internal traitors. We have internal enemies. We need to come up with methods and techniques and standards for people, and we have every right as a people, as a race, as a community to set forth standards and say, hey, here's the line. You cross it, there shall be consequences. And there's people, and that's where it feeds into the obsolete. So you can be pro-Pan-African. You can be pro-Black revolutionary. You can be pro-Black liberation. To simply be pro-Black will put you in a position where you have to align yourself and root for a myriad and large mass of population of Black people who are traitors, who act against our collective interest, who are aligned with our enemies and our oppressors. Pro-Blackness is obsolete. So before you weep for a Black victim or cheer for a Black hero, you have to determine what is their ideology and whose interest do they act on the behalf of. Blanket pro-Blackness no longer serves us, it hurts us. And the reason why we still lean on pro-Blackness is because we as a people have low racial esteem. Now, you'll find if you start to research racial esteem, you'll find a lot of social scientists and psychologists talking about racial esteem as in our Black heritage and how you can use our heritage, our culture, and the positive aspects of our community and our history, the positive characteristics of what it is to be a member of the African or Black race, and utilize that to motivate you to integrate into white society. We build pyramids. So if I understand and accept we are the mothers and fathers of civilization, that should promote me to apply to and get into Harvard. We helped to build this country. We laid the economic foundations of America. And therefore that instills pride in me and let me know that I today can be an entrepreneur and excel to the highest heights of the US economy. That is a perversion of racial esteem. When you look at racial esteem, it is about the ego. And if we are students of Dr. Naim Akbar and his psychological analysis, which we should be, as it is evolved, go back and look at my video on the community of self. Now, Dr. Naim Akbar reached out to me and was like, I respect your assessment of my work, but that was like that was decades ago. And he challenged me to review some of his more up-to-date, newer text and review that. And it'd be easy because I've pretty much read everything that Dr. Akbar puts out. So I will be reviewing some of his up-to-date work. But then the problem is, if I read some of his newer work, it's less shit to hate on. And you know I'm a hater innovator. I'm a hater, full-fledged participator hater. So if I read that particular book because there was stuff I could hate on in it. His newer works, I can't hate on it as much. But yes, Dr. Naeem Akbar contacted me, messaged me, and said, but in his book, which one part I agree with, is that your ego is your internal defense mechanism. So when you talk about our collective esteem, our racial esteem, you're talking about our racial ego. And because so many black people, and there's a lot of black people who have black pride, who are proud to be black. A lot of people are pro-black, and at the same time they're pro-black, they have low racial esteem. And low racial esteem leads us to conclude that we don't have a right to look at a successful, prominent blacks, black billionaires and black entrepreneurs, black ministerial class, the black intelligentsia, or the black entertainers and celebrities, and make demands of them, to place limitations on them, to say, hey, you don't, just like you cannot align yourself or tour to Israel, you cannot align yourself with any corporate entities that are participants or funding the exploitation of the Congo. You cannot put out any material that defames certain ancestors. And if you do, we will collectively impose consequences. There are people that say, black people, where do we get off doing such things? Because creating laws and creating policies and imposing consequences is for the government, and the government is white. So we can't even articulate our displeasure. Why you hating? Why you talking shit? Why you being a crab in a barrel? Because I think there should be bottom crab revolution. Yes, I am a bottom crab, and all the crabs that are stepping on the lower crabs should have their ankles broken. If you're stepping on my back to get up, to get out, when if the crabs simply cooperated, they could create a crab chain. And if the crabs at the top, instead of stepping on us to get out, would simply clutch the edge and then reach down to the next, and then the next, you ever had those monkey hooks? So the crabs at the top are traitors. You condemn the crabs at the bottom because all they said was, well, the crab at the top stepped on my neck and I moved and his foot slipped. Well, you should have kept your neck right there so he could step on it. So we need a bottom crab mentality. I am a proud bottom crab. Say it with me, all right? On 3, 1, 2, 3. I am a proud bottom crab. And any uppity crab, any top level crab that steps on me, gonna get his ankles, gonna get his claw clipped. I don't care if the barrel's an unnatural place. So if you want to, we can deal with that part of the analogy too. We in the barrel. We got to deal with the barrel. Yes, it's unnatural, but we in here. So how you deal with it? So if we could form a unified chain, we could all climb out one by one. And with the unified chain, the bottom crabs are supposed to get out first. With the chain on the ladder, the bottom ones crawl out, because if the top ones crawl out first, the chain breaks. So the top crabs are supposed to anchor the top, grab the top. And then the lower crab grab the next crab up and the next, and the bottom crab is the one that climbs all the way out first. Bottom crab rebellion. But anyway, as I was saying, low racial esteem. Low racial esteem makes us feel as though that we cannot impose standards. When we say, hey, you black people with resources, these are deficits in our community. These are deficits within our struggle. You need to fill these deficits. Tax. You begging them. You pocket watching. That's a byproduct of low racial esteem. To create policies, to create agendas, to impose consequences. And when I say consequences, it ain't violence. It's collective backturning. There shouldn't be one black person wearing Yeezys or Jordans. But I digress. Going a little too far, right? So until we increase our racial esteem, until we elevate our racial ego, and we don't understand what ego is. Racial ego is not, my skin is beautiful, my mahogany skin, my beautiful. Racial esteem and racial ego, saying any system that has historically or contemporarily that is not beneficial, that does not advance the interests and the values and the well-being of African people is automatically illegitimate. We will not adjust ourselves to fit into alien systems. We will either destroy or expel those alien systems. As I said, any God, any God that was used to justify the enslavement of one African, that God is unworthy of worship. But we got religions that millions of our people adhere to that has oppressed our peoples from the founding and continues to enslave and oppress and abuse our people to this day. And then the people who call out those male chauvinist murder cults are the ones who are criticized. People get on me for disrespecting religion, and they never come with me with an argument as to how the religion is respectable. That is a byproduct of low racial esteem. Any institution, any organization, any philosophy, any theology that has attacked us, that has exploited us, that does not speak to our current condition and interest is illegitimate, is unworthy and unfit, not just to govern us, but to exist in the world. That's what racial ego and racial esteem is. And it ain't about flossing. It's about defining reality and then conducting ourselves in such a way that brings about that reality and making all those who oppose those reality face immediate and standing consequences. We no longer are forgive those who violate us. To offend the dignity or disrupt the well-being of African people anywhere in the world should make you the world's greatest enemy. You forfeit your own well-being. Until we get that in the head, again, I say all the time, all the money, all the fame, all the weapons in the world will not change a thing until we get that mentality, until that becomes part of our asili, our cultural germ seed, our fundamental self-identification as we define and understand who we are as a people. It's gotten to that point. Ain't no such thing as halfway liberation. So we do need to abandon pro-blackness and replace it with pro-Pan-Africanism, pro-revolutionary Pan-Africanist, pro-black liberationist. And we need to say, hey, there's a line in the sand. No more tolerance for traitors, minstrels, coons, and sellouts. Or as Dr. John Henry Clark very simply said, if you go over there, stay over there. And these assessments and these conclusions have to be established critically, not based on any type of superficial or surface analysis or conclusions. But simply being unified is not enough. What are we unified for? What are the benefits to holding to the unity? And what are the consequences for breaking the unity? If you just say unity without saying that, what problem are you addressing? And what solution are you proposing? And what is the goddamn timeline? You know, I spent most of my life doing grassroots shit, sitting down with other black people and conceptualizing, coming up with an idea and utilizing the resources at our disposal to make that idea a reality. And one of the biggest obstacles I would run into, because I'm just thinking about, is menticide, but that low racial esteem would kick in. And then I'm like, well, my wife and I started working with grants and I started dealing with policy and working with on campaigns and doing things beyond just grassroots grinding. Because we figure, well, maybe we can just go for smaller input, bigger outcome instead of big inputs and minor outcomes, and ran into the same problems. Whether you're dealing with street level organizers or hallowed halls of academia or the arena of politics and black elected officials and policy and legislators. I've organized to advance the interests of black people in all those levels. And now I gotta, and y'all didn't, they didn't ran me back down to grass. I'm coming. If y'all have me, I gotta come back to the grassroots. I swear, if I sit in another, boardroom or fucking conference room, or, well, they're all virtual now. All that to say, every level that I organize on, I encounter the same problems. And that's a big reason why I started the BroDiallo broadcast. Because the intellectual, the ideological, the conceptual, the philosophical wall is where we hit that fucking wall. And I see so many really talented and really committed African people that are willing to put up what it takes and do the good work. Very honorable. But a lot of times that wall get hit, some of these concepts. Anyway, it's a BroDiallo broadcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and support. The ultimate conclusion of today's show: we need to increase our racial esteem. And our racial esteem needs to get to the point where we say anything that does not serve or speak to the interest of African people is illegitimate in the world, is unworthy, and has not earned or legitimized its existence. And I don't care what that institution, philosophy, or group of people is. We need to start. One of the best ways to secure power is to start exercising power, start acting and conducting ourselves as though we are people with power. But anyway, like, share, subscribe, and all that. I made good time, but I like to leave time open for questions, comments, and criticisms. I guess I could share the link for if y'all want to come on live, or you can put your questions in. I want to thank Mr. Faulty for the super sticker. Appreciation. And I got some more announcements coming up, but I don't want to say prematurely. I think next Monday, I'm gonna be in LA. Fools. I'm gonna be on the West Coast. If because it's mudslides and shit. Let me see. Just checking my calendar. What's today? Oh no. No. I got a little time. So next Monday is this week after next. That's why I gotta start buying my own damn plane tickets and stuff, so I don't know where I'm supposed to be. But anyway, so next Monday we good. And this Wednesday we're gonna have Skip Coon. Will be on deck. And wow, so I'm gonna miss a Monday and a Wednesday with Skip. But anyway, next week we'll have Skip on deck. I'll share the link if you want to have questions, comments, and criticisms. Again, thank you for the more holistic. Thank you for the super sticker. There's many ways for you to support the BroDiallo show and the Rational Radicals as well. So, any questions, comments, or criticisms about today's topic or the happenings and goings? Well, y'all have your own content. It's February. You should be ashamed of yourself talking all this Black history stuff on February. I think February should be the one when they give us permission to be Black. That's the only time we shouldn't be Black. Here's a question: how do people reverse engineer low racial esteem? Reverse engineer. What I understand about reverse engineering means you want to deconstruct it and reconstruct it to use against white folks. And how do we damage white folks' racial esteem? I don't understand reverse engineer. Why would we want to do that? I don't know how we would reverse engineer. As I understand what reverse engineering is, I don't understand why we would want to do that unless we want to level it against some other people. But I don't think we have to do onto them as they do onto us, because that is not why would we want to do that? It literally means to take something apart so that you can put it back together yourself. Uncle Truth 45. Did people forced onto slave ships see themselves as Africans or as their own cultural tribal group? They weren't just members of tribes or groups. There were whole nations. So the concept of Pan-Africanism did not exist. So no, if someone came and if an alien came to Earth and kidnapped a bunch of Earthlings, we would call. I'm like, well, I'm an American and I'm Scottish or I'm a black man. I mean, but if an alien came down to Earth in a UFO and kidnapped us all and took us somewhere and separated us from Earth, and then proceeded to enslave us and take away our language and our culture, we over a time would start to identify ourselves as Earthlings because of we have common origins. So prior to Arab invasion and followed by European incursions and enslavement, people did not identify as a continent spanning group, even though there was communication, cross-cultural interactions and nations and treaties and intermarriages. That concept had not evolved and it was not necessary. But when the continent as a whole and African skin, the African phenotype, the black race was not targeted. But once we become targeted, the reason why we became and understood ourselves as being African, because we were attacked as a continent. So we had to rebel and fight back as a continent, or we need to. So they didn't go to Africa. The Europeans didn't go to Africa to kidnap a Nigerian or a Luo or a Kikuyu or Fulani or a Dinka. They went to attack blacks or Africans or Negroes. So that concept of us being one people on a continent, us being one race, evolved. And I think it was a healthy and necessary evolution. Just like whiteness didn't exist. There was a time when a Scotsman, a Welshman, a British, and an Irish would look at each other and be like, them motherfuckers ain't me and I ain't them motherfuckers. But they created this whole concept and started acting. And even the continent of Europe, and that was Europe ain't a continent at all. So no, these things evolved later. And it is a healthy and necessary evolution. So no, when you were just an African living on a free and sovereign African territory within an African nation, within an African kingdom, within an African community or tribe, there was really no concept of, hey, I'm an African. No, I'm Dinka. And like there was more cultural, national, philosophical, religious, and even genetic diversity in the African continent than there is in the whole rest of the world combined. Africa is a very, very diverse place, and that could be a strength. But no, that was not the case then, but it is the case now. And not only should we create this concept of all of us being Africans, we need to reinforce and revolution and radicalize that concept. Shit evolves, things advance. Oh, did I share the link if you want to come through live? Where else? Any other questions, comments, or criticism? Yes, black and African is interchangeable. But all Africans are black, but not all black people are Africans. But black is interchangeable with Africans, especially in this concept. So when you understand when someone says I'm African. Yes, that is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book. Okay, here we go. How do we organize with black African Americans that we believe are not African and maybe are conservatives too? I don't think we should approach or organize black African Americans that believe they are not black African. I think we should leave them be. We should not approach or organize them. And black conservatives, we also should not approach or organize with them either. Why invite a traitor into your camp? The fortunate thing is that the vast majority of African people accept that they are African. They don't necessarily know what to do about it. Some people say, well, I'm proud to be African. Even Oprah Winfrey sat there and said, I'm a proud black woman. Even Michael Jackson, as he mutilated his features and adopted 3 white kids, sat there and said he's proud black. So the fortunate thing is the vast majority of African people in the diaspora, in the Caribbean and Central and South America, I would say the vast majority of black people acknowledge that they have historical and genetic lineage coming out of Africa. So that's that small group of pathological Africans. I say that's one of them things where you got to find I will accept the prodigal son. So if you were some black person say, I ain't African, I'm a Hebrew, I'm Native American, then let the natives deal with them. And even when they come around me, if somebody come and say, well, I'm not black, I'm native, then I'm like, well, I am a black man engaged with other black people to address black folks' issues. So what the fuck are you doing here? Go to the Chickasaw, go to the Cree, go to the Cherokee, go to the Lakotas, go to the natives. Why are these so-called black Indians always in black folks' faces spewing their bullshit? Why? Because nobody else will talk to them. Nobody else will engage with them. They can run up in a synagogue talking about I'm a black Jew, and all anything the Jews will say, oh, okay, well, then migrate to Israel, join the IDF, and let us put you on the front lines of our genocidal war. Because other than that, get the fuck out of my face. Same thing the natives tell them. The Aboriginal people, get the fuck out. I think we should treat them the same as all these other groups and let them huddle together. I say we isolate and expose, isolate, expel them. I do not believe in reaching out to hostile and belligerent Africans who are anti-black black people. I believe we let the white folks have them. And when the white folks or whatever other group they identify with brings down the hammer on them, we turn our backs. Turning the back is just a lost art. We collectively turn our backs. We don't march for them when they become victims of atrocities. We don't weep for them when the justice system, when they're unjustly targeted, when they get in trouble. Say, hey, then go to the Israeli consulate. If you're an original Jew, go to the Israeli ambassador. If you're original Native American, go to the tribal council or the tribal police and don't come to us. We are not the dumping ground for all people's pathologies. If you are so sick that you are not African, if you are a black African American who says you're not African, I accept that. If you tell me you're not African, I will accept you're not African, and I'll treat you like you're not African. If you are conservative, but still African and black, then you are a traitor, and we're hostile towards each other. The things you want within the status quo are things I'm against. The policies you want to impose on my community are policies that I wish to reverse. The policies I want to advance in my community, welfare, women's rights, abortions, or whatever, even in the political arena. So if you are a black conservative, whether it's Candace Owens or Ice Cube or that tooth and gum Negro that love Trump, they are our enemies. They are race traitors. And so we treat them like our racists we treated. I'm sick of the conscious pro-black revolutionary black people trying to reach out to everybody. Let them campaign to be with us. Let them reach out to us and let us stand with our arms folded saying, okay, plead your case. Whether or not we will accept you into our community, whether we will accept you into our community because you're born here. By default, you are an African. And if you grow up and you get caught up into some bullshit to cause you to leave the fold, then you should have to campaign to get back. We don't reach out to them. Fuck them. Let the white folks have it. If you go over there, say it with me. What did I hear? If you go over there, stay over there. What else? Any other questions? Okay. My number one fan. You couldn't find a better picture of me? Anyway, what do you have to say about Neil deGrasse Tyson saying white people didn't know any better and his father took the route of understanding and not throwing his fist and violence in the 60s? I said that's a Negro trying to stay on the payroll. I mean, I appreciate a lot of what he does to bring about appreciation for science and the scientific method. And his challenges to many of the irrational and false assertions about the universe and creations and the existence of life and perpetuation of life and the phenomenon of evolution. I appreciate a lot of work that he's done, but he needs to shut the fuck up about politics and ideology. First of all, white folks were well aware of what they're doing, to the point where they understood that in history, when they were sitting down writing out the record of their genocides, they were consciously trying to obfuscate their atrocities. They were consciously trying to obfuscate, even in the time of Columbus. If you read De las Casas' conquest of New Spain, they understood atrocities. You don't have to know anything to know that cutting somebody's throat, decapitating a child, stealing people off their land, white people, not only did they know what they were doing, they reveled in it. They planned it. They organized. They prepared for it. They sometimes would prepare for decades. So he's absolutely wrong. White folks knew better, and they chose worse. And the route of understanding and the route of comprehension, and I understand nonviolence as a tactic. I don't want to disrespect our African ancestors that chose nonviolent tactics and methods. I respect it. As long as I respect the nonviolent practitioners, as long as those nonviolent practitioners respected those who chose to take up arms, those who chose to burn, baby, burn. So the respect goes both ways. If I encountered a black person that says, hey, I'm nonviolent, I won't strike a blow, I will not raise a fist or a gun, I would tell them with all sincerity, I appreciate you, and there's a lot you can do. There's so much you can do to make a positive contribution to our just aspirations without having to engage in violence or take the life of another human or another animal. There's so much you can do, especially at this phase in the struggle. I respect non-violent people as long as they respect those who are waiting, because I don't attack people who engage or who advocate for armed resistance. I criticize those who do not embed their armed resistance in radical analysis and effective strategy, practical and effective strategy. So I think that Neil deGrasse Tyson, as brilliant as he is in scientific analysis and promoting science, it seems that he is that level of bad in his politics and in black ideology. Ukraine plague, 300 BC.
To bring about appreciation.
Ukraine plague. You're gonna have to turn off the show in the background because we're getting feedback. Ukraine plague. You're live on the BroDiallo broadcast. Going once, going twice. Okay. Sorry, he's out. I guess. Okay. Y'all gonna make me read all these questions? Don't nobody wanna come live and direct? I'll share it one more time. Okay. Passionate rebellion. Are you optimistic, in all capitals? So I guess she screamed it. Are you optimistic about our ability to raise our racial esteem given the gender tensions that dominate our current movement in spaces? Not sure why gender tension is not really the problem. And I think gender tension, again, that's a symptom, not a core issue. So anyway, I would say that I'm not an optimistic person overall. No. But here's the thing. I'm very optimistic in our overall ability to liberate ourselves, in our overall ability to course correct, to improve ourselves, and to challenge and face the challenges. But the problem is, as Europeans, if the issue was simply European invaders and colonizers, or Arab colonizers in North Africa, or Islamic hordes taking our lands and trying to, I'm very confident that we're in a position to overcome that. And in fact, if you look at the historical timeline, our resistance movements are moving quite rapidly compared to the overall, the default status of African people is free and independent. Our time, our years in bondage, as you would call it, our time under colonization and oppression and slavery is a relatively small component of our larger history. And we've confronted, we've endured, and we're challenging it. But the issue is, these systems and these ideologies are not just oppressing Black people. They are melting the ice caps and the permafrost. They are contaminating the ocean. They are driving other animal species and destroying ecosystems and driving a mass extinction and warming the climate and destabilizing the Earth's climate. So the problem is not that we can't overcome this, and we are overcoming it. The problem is we're not doing it fast enough to face the other challenges. Because it is not just our duty to liberate ourselves, it is our duty to restore the Earth's ecosystem. That's where my optimism really fades away. Once we get free, will the Earth be able to sustain complex life forms within that time? Okay, West Bank Bell, you're live with the BroDiallo broadcast.
Peace, brother.
How are you doing this evening?
Not too bad. Can't complain.
Yes.
So let me ask you this question, brother. It seems like even with the ADOS and was the FBA movement?
FBA.
Yeah, FBA. Like we're regressing to this ethno-nationalist, right? Thing where you wanna separate yourself and isolate yourself, thinking that you're gonna get more in return, so to speak. And we're having that on the continent too, honestly. And I think a lot of the African countries operate like that too, where you got countries literally being carved up in regions. Right now there's that same issue in Somalia with Somaliland. The north and the south. Is it like what do you attribute that to? And how can we, kind of educate and like have our people just like, man, look, it's better to be united. I mean, the enemy is working, in a unified way to get rid of us. So why are we steady trying to isolate ourselves and, screaming, our ethnicity, which is fine. Like you can claim your lineage and that's fine. And we can celebrate you as a unique African, but like, it seems like people are literally thinking that when you refer to somebody as an African or black, that you're robbing them of their ethnicity. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, brother.
Okay, I appreciate you, and well, that's quite a bit. But I would say that with the FBA, and someone asked, what is the FBA? FBA is the Foundational Black Americans. The ADOS started to fall into factions. I think that the ADOS is very astute at, it's a parasitic organization. It's a parasitic group. And it's already fracturing, because ADOS, Foundational Black Americans, was basically some disgruntled members of the ADOS broke off and formed the FBA with pretty much all the same rhetoric and the same self-hate. But it's already fracturing and breaking down, number one. Number two, the only reason they're able to survive or thrive or have any appeal in the Black community is because they misrepresent who they are and what they stand for. So anything built on a lie can be dismantled by the truth. So they claim that they want to get resources and reassert Black Americans standing in the United States. That's not a viable agenda. It is one where the reparations, they have distorted what reparations really meant, and they got out in front, because the reparations movement in the United States goes all the way back to Reconstruction. And you have organizations like in Cobra, you have individuals like the late Dr. Conrad Randall, Dr. Randall, Bill Grace, or AKA Brother Samori. These are Pan-African Black people who acknowledge and stand in solidarity with the decolonization struggle of Africa, with our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, as they fought, and understood that a component of reparations is not just a payout to Africans, but a dismantling and a retreat or reverse of U.S. imperialist policies against Africans abroad. They took that, Randall Robinson, yes, they took that and warped it into Black people versus with U.S. citizenship versus Black people without universal citizenship. So I don't really feel threatened by the FBA. They will always, because they got this promise that of a windfall, it's prosperity politics and cut the check. And, you can never turn. Can you imagine Dr. King or Malcolm X talking about cut the check and reduce our dignity and the blood that we spill and the suffering of our ancestors down to nothing more than a check? So I don't fear them. I think the only reason they survive, and many researchers have shown it, is because a lot of white people are putting money behind that because they want black jingoists and black xenophobia because it is a good, useful, they're useful idiots or useful tools of the larger xenophobic right-wing reactionary fascist movement. They are tools, and every day I'm finding more and more people that are getting hip to that scam and that scheme. Yvette has been exposed, being on the payroll of our enemies and so on and so forth, and all the internal corruption. So anybody that's in that movement is either a scammer or being scammed. And so we can enjoy watching it collapse under its own contradictions.
Last thing, would you say that's more of a newer thing, or was it like that in the 90s?
We've
80s?
always had Negroes like this. We've always had Negroes. There was the civil rights movement, and there were black people who were hostile to the civil rights movement, asserting that, oh, they just troublemakers. Oh, they just marching up and down the street acting a damn fool. But then soon as the civil rights movement started to get some legitimacy and progress, those same hostile Negroes stood up and tried to take it over. It's called, and try to capture it. The same thing with the Black Power movement. They were mocking them. Y'all trying to be out in the streets and put a black fist in the air and all that foolishness, all that monkey business. And soon as the Black Power movement started to trend and the youth started resonating with it, then all of a sudden those same people who denounced it, they then to claim they were the founders of it. You go all the way back 100 years to the Garvey movement. W.E.B. Du Bois called Marcus Garvey a fool, and his silly costumes and marching around in these silly parades, and this Back to Africa movement is a bunch of foolishness. And then who ended up repatriating back to Africa?
Right.
So no, there's always, whenever we organize, there are going to be traitors. Every movement has traitors. Even, Hitler had Nazis that were trying to kill him. The British had, the Europeans had a abolitionist movement in this country. Every movement and every struggle, the AIM, American Indian movement, had what was called the Goon Squad. They had other Native Americans, as the Native Americans were trying to liberate themselves and drive the invaders off their land. There were Native Americans who were armed and deputized by the FBI to attack their own people. Even in revolutionary struggles, any struggle for liberation is going to have its traitors, and most of the struggles for colonizations also had its people who stood against principle against theirs. So that's just a part of large scale movements and struggle, and it shouldn't, we should prepare for that on the front end.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, brother.
All right,
thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, now Roman, I appreciate you waiting. Roman, oh no, that's Plague. Plague, you're live with the BroDiallo broadcast. Ukraine Plague 300 BC, 3000 BC, and we're off again. Okay, Roman.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing okay, man. It's good to talk to you. I've been watching you for a minute now. It's good to.
Right.
So I'm a young person. I'm young. I'm like 20, and I know that there's obviously there's a lot of black people out there struggling and trying to get younger people into politics. But I find it kind of like hard. Not hard, but I feel like there's not a big push to get my generation to really pay attention to what's happening around us. Like, I find you and Black Power Media and all this stuff is super important, and I want to share it, but it always feels like the main conversation is never really about, maybe how the politics in America are really affecting us and how it will affect us in the future. So my question is, how, in your opinion, do you think we should go about getting younger people in my generation who are pretty obsessed with the money and very bourgeois lifestyle that like rappers put up? How do we get our attention away from that and onto the really important stuff? Because in like 10 years, this all the money and all the rapping and all that kind of stuff that doesn't matter is going to come back and bite us in the ass. So I just want to hear your opinion on it.
All right. So first, I have to tell you, when I was very active in my 20s in struggles, and it was pretty much the same phenomenon. I would say probably even worse amongst my generation, was much more reactionary and tuned out than young people today. But if you are trying to organize amongst your peers, you have to meet them where they're at. Like you said, if they're into the music, you can simply start to inject and bring up the many progressive arts, progressive music, revolutionary, radical music. If they're into fashion, you can go that route. I mean, I saw a lot of people with with my own sons, they started learning about the fast fashion, that Temu and stuff. Really, exploitation and oppression is embedded in every component. So if you meet a young person that's into fashion, then talk to them about the exploitation and the harms within the fashion industry. So you just meet them where they are, and you engage them. If they just like, hey, I just want to kick it, I'm just trying to ball out, they got these diamonds, then you say, okay, let's look at the diamonds. Where did the diamonds come from? How did the diamonds get the value? So what I really do is try to point them towards the liberation and radical politics embedded in what they're into, or point them to the injustices of what they're embedded into.
I hear you. Thank you. And I have one final question. I missed a little bit of the stream, but how would you, I guess I'm asking, how should I go about raising my racial esteem personally? And how could I maybe translate that to the people around me in my life and online, and that kind of sort of thing?
Well, in terms of raising, first of all, just understanding and fully grasping the concept and purpose of racial esteem. If that's the first step. After you've grasped that concept, then you have to start evaluating everything from that lens. Everything has to come through that filter. So as you say, well, what's my position, political position, the cultural products and cultural components of things that I'm into, the literature that I read. Once you establish and grasp who you are, where you're from, and you start to filter things that come into your life through that lens, it will start to just naturally cultivate and naturally be reinforced. So you say, hey, if my people, if I'm standing for or supporting my people, and I identify what is in the interest of my people, what brings dignity, validation, and advance the positive aspirations of my people, what components and what things in my life, in my community, in my environment, or things that I aspire to that advance that, what things are hostile or harmful to my people, what things reduce the dignity, offend my people. And as you begin to engage those things and start to build up those things that uplift, and start to target and subvert those things that tear it down, it's just it's an old school saying, make the path by walking. You just have to engage and start to conduct yourself as someone with high racial esteem, and your racial esteem will elevate without you even deliberately or consciously recognizing it. And so every day, like, it could be something as simple as, Yeezy comes out here and disrespects slavery as a choice. He loves Hitler and wearing Klan's hoods. I'm not wearing Yeezys. And I'm going to tell my homies not to wear Yeezys, and don't come around me in those goddamn Yeezys. And just take that stand. I'm not watching the NFL. I love football. Maybe I have to watch college football, or find a local high school team that I can support and go to all their games. And because I'm not going to watch NFL. So if I'm a football fan, I'm not the NFL and just the Kaepernick, just those small things. They not only elevate your ideology and consciousness, they reinforce and validate it. And then as you do that, you can start to level up, and it'll just become second nature.
I hear that. It does. I'll just wrap it up. But I live in a very white community, so like growing up, there's not a lot of black anything. So this racial esteem stuff is definitely very helpful in these areas where it's just not, you don't see all the culture, you don't see a lot of black people like yourself. Well, thank you, Diallo.
I appreciate it. With me. All right, peace. Have a good evening. All right, should I give Ukraine another chance? Okay, I'm gonna give Ukraine Plague 3000 a chance. Ukraine.
Thank you. Yes, can you hear me?
Third time's the charm. Welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast.
The charm. Indeed. Thank you. Yeah. So I don't want to, take up too much time. I'm a big fan. I just wanted to explain, or I guess reference, one of the things you had said earlier. You said we're taught to believe the idea of race, white, white people didn't exist, until they happened to cross the transatlantic, slave trade, cross the sea and all that. I think that is a big misunderstanding, to say the least. I think that they benefit from us, thinking this way, because if you actually, we trace back the origin of quote unquote white people or Caucasian people, they're not indigenous to Europe, right?
Okay.
They're from the Caucasus Mountains. And now, just one other thing that ties into this is, we're looking at Zionism here, and today with the bombing and all that, and then we hear about Nazism from in the past with World War II, right? I've read that those are two sides of the same coin, and this ties into the race picture, because in Judaism, all right, in their own tradition, they claim that they descend from Noah. All right, Mount Ararat is where Noah's progeny were spread from, where he planted his vineyard, got drunk, fell asleep with all, and his son saw him, cursed him. All that happened in the Caucasus Mountains. Now, the Nazis traced their origin back to the same place. Now, they wanted to think it was Germany, but they were misinformed. They were wrong about that. They happened to move from the Caucasus and, colonize Germany to the extent to where it looked like they were originally from there. All right. But the Zionism and the Nazism are really two sides of the same coin. You got people today in America, quote unquote skinheads, all right, who think that Jews are trying to replace them, when the truth is that they're both from Ukraine. And so my handle, I guess you could say, is Ukraine Plague 3000 BCE for that purpose, because we're fortunate enough today to have scientific evidence, all right, genetics showing the origin of Yersinia pestis, which it shows, the model shows that Yersinia pestis originated around 3000 BCE, 5,000 years ago, in what is modern day Ukraine. And that is what caused the frenzy, okay, and caused refugees to leave the Caucasus Mountains and kill indigenous people, all right, in a plague-inspired frenzy. So not God flooding the whole earth and then telling Noah to reproduce and, fill the rest of the earth. That's not the case. You see what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
Okay, that's good enough.
But I have to say, I think that you are conflating a lot of folklore, mythology, and history.
Okay.
So, and it's a lot to suss out. And we're 4 minutes over time. But I would have to say, I really don't know where to start. I appreciate your enthusiasm for these topics. I do think they're important, but I think you're conflating a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of mythology and folklore that is embedded in history, and especially in a such a powerful religious environment like the United States. It's one of the most religiously oriented Western nations currently, outside of Vatican City, probably. We do get a lot of our religion and the mythologies of and folklores of Christian and Talmud and things, because Noah never existed. Moses
I agree.
Existed.
I agree.
So people who descended, but you also have, in terms of the origins of the European and human migrations and human dispersals, it's not really it's what they call in anthropology polygenesis. There are several pockets of populations that were isolated and then came together, bred, and then were re-isolated. So there's really not just one place. And even the concept of a Caucasian or the Caucasoid and the concept of an Aryan can be found as far away as places like India and things of that nature.
But the reason, okay, sorry to cut you off. Can I say one more thing? Because I appreciate you letting me talk for so long. I feel like you probably let me talk a little longer than I deserve. So one more thing. You referenced India. I think that, and I don't want to get into the deep mythology. Obviously, India has the Rig Vedic Hindu religious tradition, right? And in their stories, they also claim to come from the same place, the Caucasus Mountains. And they just so happen to be the Indo half of the Indo-Europeans. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. But I mean, if you have to, if you, I'm not really sure what it would really communicates or asserts to say that all white people came from the Caucasus Mountain. How did they get to the Caucasus Mountain to come from the Caucasus Mountain? You know?
Let me tell you my best answer. I'm gonna tell you my quick, succinct best answer to that. How did they get there? Originally, there were black people that filled that space, that colonized that area. But, the first Homo sapiens, all right, got into Europe, they say around 40,000 years ago. Obviously, that's not when white skin came about. They say white skin came about around, the oldest will say 10,000 years ago, which would be 8,000 BCE. And obviously, it would take some time to be incubated, to be preserved. You know how easy it is to wipe out white skin, right? So my best answer for that is black people were up there, and racism couldn't have come about without the help of some indigenous black people.
Listen, I just think, like I said, there's a lot of mythology and folklore married to your history. The term Caucasian is not that because all white people came from the Caucasus Mountain. There's just no support for that in terms of when you look at the historical record or look at the genealogy.
There hasn't been support, but I would argue that the genetics, and I could be completely wrong, but I urge people to look into, the name of the scientist is Eski Willerslev. He also has another guy he works with named Christiansen, and they do the genetics, the archaeology they're trying to find the origin of Indo-Europeans, and they happen to have found the origin of Yersinia pestis. And I don't want to cut you off, but I do believe that we are living in a moment where they have the science and the genetics to pinpoint the origin of the Indo-Europeans. They've done it, they've done it linguistically. They've done it through archaeology for a long time.
Then what will that information, how do we interpret that? Okay, we got the fact, the origin of the Indo-European, we have it. And then
right.
What will that tell us? What will that communicate to us?
Well, one thing I can say from my own experience is it just so happens to coincide the origin of white skin, the Indo-Europeans, and the origin of plague just so happens, out of all the places on earth, to have originated in the same place, modern day Ukraine. So okay. I think that's a very interesting coincidence. Now, that's why those two things going together. Go ahead. Sorry.
What should we do with that insight?
That gives us a background. The best way I can answer this, the shortest answer is it gives us a background, a historical background to now look at this Judeo-Christian myth that really our whole civilization has been built off of. A lot of.
Let's say everything you say is absolutely. The white man, Indo-Europeans, and everybody we define as white came from this limited place on the globe, right? This one pinpointed area.
Yes.
They all emerged and spread across the globe from there.
There was a mixing, but yes, go ahead.
What do we do with that? What do we do with it?
Oh, honest, okay. We pack it up. We recognize it. All right, as the longer, not 400 years, not 500 years, but 5,000 years of racism. We recognize the origin of the first refugee terrorists. Now, obviously, people are going to say, "Oh, yeah, they're probably refugee terrorists."
I think because now you keep going off of, but okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask it in this way. Let's say your idea of what you call a unigenesis. There's one pinpointed area that all white people emerged from to spread across the globe. And there are other people saying as humans migrated and adapted and evolved to various climates, you have what is called the polygenesis theory, where there were several pocket populations, communities, tribes that would come together and break apart, come together over many decades, evolve or devolve or mutate over a wider spans of territory, right? Now, when some interbred with Neanderthals and all these origins. So if we have a unigenesis, one place where they all started, or a place that was much more wider geographic area over a much longer span of time, either one of those two origin stories, what would we do differently if one origin story was true over the other one?
That's a good question. Yeah, okay, I like that.
At the conditions that we have today, what would we do?
What will we do differently, right?
Yes.
I believe that with a unigenesis, I believe that's the term you're using, with a unigenesis reality, if that turns out to be the reality, I think that we can pack it back up, because it's almost as if, you know, something got out of control and spread and got out of hand.
Back up. Make them all go back to Ukraine. Make them all go back to the Caucasus.
It sounds horrible, but when you think about it, what has been going on for the past, people will only own up to the past 500 years. So I'll say what's been going on for the past 500 years has been just as, or no, has been worse than that. People can go back peacefully. They want to imagine that we're going to bomb them and sink the boats on their way back and all that.
Wait, you're way out ahead of it.
Go ahead.
You're saying that if the unigenesis explanation is right,
yes,
all of the people that we identify as white or Caucasians and coerce, force, or demand that they all return to the Ukraine.
I think that it's going to be a gradual process. I think that there's going to be
that's the solution.
I think that is the ultimate solution. It's an indigenous world. Yes, I think it's a black world, indigenous world. And the only way we get there, we don't need to dress up white people as Native Americans and
Why do they have to
you know,
go back to the original place? Why not just, if we had the capacity to send them somewhere or send them all somewhere, why not just pick any place?
Because I think that we've seen negative consequences. So for instance, like if we would have sent the Jews to Uganda.
Repeating the cycle. If we sent, because if they all there and took over the world, what's to stop them from going back and just?
That's a good question. That's a good question. So here you go, Diallo. I think, thank you for asking. That's a great question. I think that had they spread just because they were great, better than everybody, I think that the argument that I think that it would be a different argument. All right. But I think that because, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm honestly willing to put, you know, skin in the game. I'm betting, you know, my whole years of research on this. All right. If they spread because of plague, if they spread because they were in a frenzy and had to get out of Dodge, okay, and wherever they happened to, you know, choose, they killed indigenous people and took their land. If that's where it started, then I think that there is a logical argument to make for packing it up and making reparations, for making amends and healing humanity. Because
if we could get all white people to move to the Ukraine, I assume that they're going to have to leave all the infrastructure and resources behind, right? They wouldn't even have.
Man, listen, if they could find a way to take it, they'll take it. If they can find a way to take it.
Huh?
If they can find a way to take it, they'll take it.
If every white person, hell, I don't even need all white people. Just the colonizing racist white folks all went back to the U. But okay,
here's the backwardness. Let me just say this. Go ahead.
Let me ask this.
All right.
Will the return be gradual?
Yes, it will have to be gradual.
Was gradual. So first, we, like all the white people in America, right? First, we have to push them back past the Mississippi Delta, right? Like they did when they and then like the Louisiana, we push them back, and then we push them back above the Mason-Dixon line, and then we push them all the way to Plymouth Rock, right? And
that sounds amazing. Yeah.
All the white people in America on Plymouth Rock, then they have to go back to Great Britain, and then all the white people in
not just Britain, but listen.
Let me try to get this together, because this is going to take some time. This is a lot of work. We got to concept, and then we to get all the Latin American white folks and get them to go back to Spain and Portugal, right? And
now I think the only way. Honestly, yes.
They're going to go back, like they're going to be like hop back to like the places where they came from.
So I'll put it to you like this: it's not like there's an incline, you know, that leads to Europe or leads to the Ukraine. It's an even earth that they're traveling. The same earth that they had to travel to come this way, you know, is the same. They don't have to go up any mountains that you see what I'm saying? It's not like. But they want to imagine it's going to be the end of the world. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just saying, bro, listen, I'm telling you, just that they all come from the Caucasus Mountain and there in which they will return. That's just isn't held up by the anthropological, historical, or even the genetic record.
Hold on. This is where I believe I can give you some resources. Go ahead. Let you finish. I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
I promise you, I'm not going to explore those resources. I mean, if I'm wrong on this, and I mean, if I just
Okay, let me ask you one
I don't want to
question.
waste
Let
your
me.
time, but listen. Okay, we could even do that because I know a lot of people really get heavily into this origins stuff, and one, this is what is called a panacea. What you're articulating here, and I actually just did a whole discussion on panacea. Like, if I could just get this one minute thing, if we could figure out this one minute thing, it would put everything else in the proper perspective and offer us a simple, very simple. We find the origin where they all come from and we make them all go back there. That's kind of a panacea solution. That's kind of a salvation from on high solution. And those things are very.
Hold on.
I mean,
Can I say?
I gave you time. Let me just give.
Okay. Okay.
And those are very seductive. They all devils. They all come from the same place, and we're gonna take them back and bind them in the. I understand. I've been hearing that rhetoric the entire time I've been engaged in the Black liberatory struggle. It is a panacea, meaning an oversimplified end-all be-all solution to a complex and widespread problem. I have to be honest with you. At this juncture in human history and human dispersal, it's not even relevant if you say all Africans originated at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, all Asian people originated at the mouth of the Diallo River, all Native Americans originated from the mighty gorge or the Grand Canyon. It's not that relevant to dispersals at this point, that singular origin.
So you would say the origin of white supremacy is not that important?
The origin, first of all, there's no such thing as white supremacy. Who are white people supreme to?
I agree it's an illusion, but it's an illusion that has affected, has made it, it has been made actual.
You're asking about the origins of white hegemony and white colonization.
There you go. And how did they spread? What caused them to spread from the first place?
Listen, the origins of white hegemony and white colonization came thousands upon thousands of years after the origins of people we would identify today as being white. So you going way far.
What makes you certain about that? What makes you certain about that?
When you talk about the origins of an ideology, if you talk about the origins of a condition, if you talk about the origins of the movement, white people did not emerge on the world as dominant. White people did not begin dominating the world upon their origins. White hegemony and white domination, white colonization, the atrocities, the ma'afa occurred over a long span of time. So if you're talking about the origins of humanity, and then by extension, the various mutation and isolated populations that brought about the genetic and phenotypical diversity that create what we call today, classify as the races of man, the domination and the geopolitics that we're dealing today, origins don't date back to that. You can maybe say the culture and psychology date back to that. But if you look at the earliest Western civilizations, the early Western civilizations or white tribes, they were quite diverse. They did have more humane, non-colonial, non-conquest. That's why Europe engaged in centuries of internal conquest, internal colonization, internal invasions before they ever invaded a person who didn't have white skin. They were enslaving and invading peaceful white people before they found peaceful natives and peaceful aboriginal people to go. They were inflicting that self on their other white people. So those origins and the origins of white people and the origins of white hegemony are not the same, and they didn't happen at the same time in history. So I'm going to unmute you now. I hope you heard what I'm saying.
I may have heard it incorrectly, but I promise you I was listening as hard as I could. So here is the shortest response I can give. I believe that it's probably okay. I believe that the origin, all right, of Indo-European spreading, and this is what the science shows. I know you said you're not going to look at it, but the origin was caused. So you said that they didn't start off being dominant. That's what I want to respond to. You said that you said white skin did not start off being superior.
Of course not.
Can I respond? Okay, so can I respond to that?
What I'm saying, but go on. Yeah, go for it. I'm not gonna.
I just wanted to say that its place of superiority or dominance, it was asserted through a spread of plague frenzied terrorists. So that's my point that I'm trying to come back to. The Ukraine plague 3000 BCE, that paved the way for white skin spreading. And so when you said that white people colonized other white people and were fighting other white people first, that makes me think that you're talking about a more surface level history and not quite the root, if that makes sense. So for instance, the Palestinian people are light skinned, their complexion is light. All right. The Arabs' complexion is light. All right. It just so happens that Mount Ararat is mentioned in the Quran. They all trace their origins back to Indo-European people. I know you said it's mythology, but that was the best effort they could to trace their origin. All right. To where they believed that the origin peoples were. And that's Ukraine. That's the Caucasus, Caucasian people. It's not a coincidence that Prince George, King George or whatever.
Out on a limb and I say that's irrelevant. How is that relevant to anything today?
Oh, you said, oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Earlier you said that it doesn't play into the politics today. I would argue that the reason why, so the countries that we have around the world are really just chess pieces. All right. That have been spread out into and innervated by white supremacists. All right. Now you have white supremacists that are Jews. They can be just, the nicest Jews ever. If they believe in that.
All of them coming from the Caucasus, the same region in Europe.
Say again, I didn't hear the first part.
What does that have to do with them being from the same country in Europe, from the same all of them descending from the Caucasus Mountain at the same time?
Because their mythology all converges on the group of people that spread and killed. And this is not something I'm making up. The Indo-Europeans, all right, spread because of plague, Yersinia pestis, in modern Ukraine, and they killed indigenous people, expanding out into Asia, Africa, and Europe. Europe used to be black.
You're a black atheist.
Say again?
You're an atheist?
Yes.
But you keep referring to biblical, Quranic, and Talmudic history.
Because that's what's influenced so many of these indigenous peoples losing their land.
But as history.
No. I'm referring. Okay, I'm glad you said that. It is the way that they describe history. So, for instance, you said Moses didn't exist, but yet the books were written, and they were written by somebody who was trying to figure out how white people have spread into India, into Africa, and into Europe.
Saying the purpose. That's it. Okay, bro. You got it.
It's Genesis and Exodus. It literally explains. It's their way of trying to explain how things came to be.
Biblically oriented atheists I've had the pleasure of having a discussion with.
I mean, if I didn't read the books, how could I argue with them?
Huh?
If I didn't read their books, how could I argue with them? At one point, I didn't read it.
Read who books?
The Bible, the Quran. If I didn't read those books, how could I argue with the followers?
Bible history?
Say again?
Does the Bible qualify as a history book?
No, but it shows how they want us to interpret history.
Are we discussing history or are we discussing theology?
So nobody actually wrote the account of where white skin came from. Otherwise, we would have that. But they did write the Bible, which happens to say the world was flooded.
Where did white skin come from?
The Caucasus Mountains, Mount Ararat.
White skin came from there? How did it get there?
It evolved through mutation, A111T.
So it's a mutation.
Yes, sir. And there were SLC mutations before it.
So it's an evolutionary mutation, right?
You can call it evolutionary. I guess anything that has to do with genetics and reproduction is evolutionary. Yeah, sure.
I don't know if that's true, but we don't have to go that far. So
you're saying evolution. I'm saying evolution takes time. And what I'm saying is the mutation that occurred happened about 10,000, 8,000 years ago.
Okay, that's not true. More than double that.
The A111T mutation, have you looked it up?
I'm talking about white skin.
That's the mutation, though. Okay,
And-
I'll give you that, though. Let's say that there was lighter skin, which effectively would have been white skin back then, right? Like, so somebody that's, you know, the Puerto Rican skin tone.
30,000 years ago. Listen,
Say
okay.
again?
I don't know what we're trying to get to. I wish you luck. Believe you me, if you ever get around to gathering up all the white folks and you need a list of white folks' names for me to take back to the Caucasus, I will prepare my list of white folks and I will list my white folks for you to take back to the Caucasus in order of priority.
Let me say this. Can I say this real fast? It's a paradox. All right, the good white people are going to be the first ones to leave, so we're going to be stuck with all the rebels. Yeah. I thought about this for a while, man. I thought this through. Believe it or not, I thought this through and put a lot of work in, Diallo.
God damn it, the good white ones go first. That's a god damn it.
Diallo, the Europeans that came over here didn't stay. All of them didn't stay over here. Some of them went back. We're not. You see what I'm saying? We're not. We don't think about that, but some of those Europeans went back. They said, you know what? Nah, to hell with this. We're not killing Indians. We're going to go right back over here and have this peaceful life.
Where did they go to have the peaceful life?
Back to the UK, back to Spain, back to Amsterdam, back to Netherlands.
Spain had one of the bloodiest civil wars in Europe.
Yeah, they bounce around. Listen, the rich people bounce around. They don't worry about fighting in wars.
Fascist
They bounce around.
Dictatorship, the Franco regime. Well, Spain ain't been right now. Spain has got territories trying to break loose in violent uprisings. Europe has not been peaceful.
You think? I mean, so there can be wars and then outside, and then the rich people can be all right. But my point is, they bounce around, Diallo. They bounce around. They don't have any allegiance to one country. Okay, they're bouncing around.
Yes. Okay. Like I said, man, I'm going to start working on my list. I was going to put the bad folks on my list, but now I got to have to put some of the good white folks I know on the list.
So I think our expectations are important, man. If we don't have expectations, whether they choose to do it or not, if we don't have expectations, and I know it sounds crazy, but land back.
I have to say, I just have to be honest after all this time, but we do have to wrap this up in 1 minute. It's 9:30. I was supposed to wrap up at 9. I think that you're expending a lot of energy on this, and you're putting, as an atheist, one black atheist to the other, I think you got a bit too much faith in these rather pointless, if not absurd, ideas. As far as putting all this energy in the origins of white skin, I think it's pretty much been sussed out. You know, when people who we would identify the European phenotype or the white phenotype, where it emerged, when it emerged, and how it spread across, how it spread, you know, naturally just through human migrations, and then how it later spread through colonial and imperialist invasions across the globe. I think that's all been pretty much sussed out.
So you're saying that you agree that 4,000 years before the Common Era is when white people originated in Ukraine and started spreading?
No.
That's my point, though. That's my point.
30,000 years ago, with people with white skin been around the Caucasus and parts of Asia, that was like 30,000 years ago when they.
No. So that's the biggest thing, Diallo. I promise you.
Hey, listen, I can't, man. Come on, man. You. I'll just give you the final word. You go ahead and tell us what's the ultimate.
So I think that people who are interested in this and who want to see, you know, what the final straw is or whatever, look up, all right, Ireland, India, white skin, and you'll see a article, all right, that talks about how all white people from Ireland to India descend from a person that lived around less than 10,000 years ago. And you can look that up.
Sentence, period. Period, right? That's the sentence.
That's it.
That you want to share.
That's it. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you
That's
for
it.
that.
That's it.
All right. You have a good night, bro.
You too. Thank you.
Peace. I'm going to sleep good tonight because I'm exhausted. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. You know, I bring y'all some of the deepest thinkers in the community. You're welcome, by the way. And good night. And I'll see y'all Wednesday. Radical featuring